Hello, you lovely lot. Welcome back to the Independent Spouse podcast series. Today I've been talking to the lovely Helen, who went out of her way to create the most amazing guide. Career Pursuit is a guide created especially for all military spouses all over the world, and it helps you gain clarity on your career or which way you might want to take your business. It is an amazing guide, chock full of information, and you should definitely go and look at it. The following interview explains why she started it and the kind of information you can find in that guide. But first off, we need to hear from the sponsors of this series, the Royal British Legion. The Royal British Legion understands that being a service family can sometimes put pressure on your career. That's why they're offering employment support to all members of our armed forces community. Whether it's helping to write a CV, advice on educational grants, or getting a qualification to help you take the next step in your career, they've got your back. Just search for the Royal British Legion online and follow their information. And I have to say a massive thank you to the Royal British Legion for sponsoring this entire series. The Independent Spouse started a couple of years ago. It was self-funded off the back of my own design business, and it is something that I love doing. But to be able to have the funds to keep producing this podcast series and to keep sharing these stories has been really important to me. So it's amazing that they've stepped up to do that, and I genuinely appreciate it. And I hope that you appreciate it too, and I hope that you have been enjoying this series so far. If you are, and you'd like to leave a little recommendation over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts, then that would be amazing and much appreciated. So thank you so much for that. And of course, if you are listening to this because you have your own business, there is the Millspo Network. It's a big online community of over 700 members, and we would love you to join us. We are having so much fun in there despite this crazy time. So do head over to Facebook, search for Millspo, and come and join us in the group. You will not regret it. So now it's time for the interview with the lovely Helen. I really hope you enjoy this interview and get an awful lot out of it. Hello, Helen. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for coming to talk to me today. We're going to talk about your epic publication soon. It's called Career Pursuit. But before we get started, please could you introduce yourself?
I'm Helen Massy, and I've been a military partner spouse for 17 years now. My husband's in the RAF, and we've moved around the UK a little bit and then spent a year in the Falklands, and now we're based in Canada. And since we got to Canada, I set up a business as a medical and health writer. So it's all been change in the recent years.
It has, and it's exciting. You've done lots of different jobs. I was reading a little bio that you sent me. It was brilliant. But you said that you couldn't take your job to Canada, which is what inspired you to start your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. So my career is clinical. I was a physiotherapist and a clinical specialist in respiratory disease in the NHS for over 10 years, and took it for granted really that I was very lucky when we moved around the UK. I managed to find jobs in my specialty, and took it for granted that I would be able to work in a different country, but just due to regulations and timings, it's not possible. So I had to think outside the box and set up a new business.
And you started your business earlier this year, which I think is an amazing thing to do in a global pandemic. And you said it was to provide flexibility around your family, which is why you had the idea for this amazing publication. It's called Career Pursuit. You said that earlier, way back when you're looking for people to contribute, that you'd seen something similar in the US, but you hadn't found anything in the UK. And that's what spurred you on. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all stemmed really from my own experience. When you get posted abroad, especially when you're sort of the only Brit in a situation, you don't get the support that you get from the UK bases necessarily. And it's really hard to find career support. And so I did reach back to the UK, but there was no one-stop shop to find all the information. And I would get dribs and drabs of information of how to write a CV and tips of things to do. But it was taking months to find out anything. And I actually ended up reaching out to the US, who had done a similar publication, and I ended up writing an article for. And they really have a big support network for their military spouses. It was really easy to find information in the United States, but I'm sort of a Brit living in Canada and I wasn't sure where to go. And after months and months of research, I found out there are so many great resources in the UK, so many available things there for military spouses to access. And I just wanted to put it all in one place. I didn't want other people to have to go months and months and months of research to find out where it all was. And that's where Career Pursuit was born, really.
It's great. It's a publication and you've talked to a load of us. It's got Recruit for Spouses and the Co-working Network, and I'm in there with the Millsbay Network. And it's a really good place to start if you are looking to start up. I think you're right. There's so many of us doing amazing things and we're all kind of talking to each other. But because we are all either grassroots like the Millsbay Network or focused on other things, I think the collaborative part of it has kind of gone a little bit to the wayside. And I think that's definitely something that we are all trying to work on a bit harder. I know the MAD have now finally picked it up. So that's exciting. Yes, I think we'll be making the right noises so that finally it might make it a little bit easier for everybody. I just love the fact that when somebody in this community sees something lacking, they step up and do something. Why is it so important to you that you did step up and do that?
Something that stuck out to me was the message sort of given a lot of the time to spouses is just get any job. And that's what I was told. It was like, just go and get a bar job. And I don't want to just go and get a bar job. You know, I have a specialist career. I had a career for over 10 years, a lot of skills that I want to share. And that tends to be the first line. It's trying to just get spouses into jobs. And I think, to steal a line from Jamie Chapman in the US, who runs Begin Within and does employment support for military spouses, it's about careers, not jobs. You know, really making sure that those skills are recognised, helping people to set up their own businesses, helping people to really succeed and having something they can take with them wherever they go, rather than just that getting a quick job that isn't really going to satisfy you or utilise your skills.
I know that we shouldn't really compare ourselves to the US because, you know, we're completely different countries. We just happen to speak the same language. But they've always really had it set up for a long time. And a lot of the stuff that I do, I've been inspired by what they're doing in the US. And it seems really odd that it has taken us a little bit longer to catch up and to, like you say, realise that spouses and partners should be supported to have careers and not just jobs, because that job thing just doesn't work for some of us that move house. I mean, I moved house every 11 months for the last few years, which is a bit intense, and nobody would employ me. And by the time I'd found a job, it would be time to leave. What is it you think they have in the US that is different to the UK? And why do you think that they are doing it differently?
Geographically, it's always been a challenge in the US because you can't translate jobs as easily from state to state. So even working as a clinically or as a teacher, your qualifications aren't necessarily recognised. So I think they've had to deal with this problem from the beginning, whereas it's a little bit easier in the UK often to move around with your job sometimes, and that's sort of taken for granted that you don't have to re-qualify in things. And I think it's a different tribe and they still have the same problems, but there's a lot more companies that have got on board to remote working. And I think with a bit more of a bigger private sector, certainly in things like education and medical, there are a lot more online remote working jobs available. I think that's only just really coming to fruition now in the UK. And if anything, I know that the pandemic's been a hindrance, but in some ways it's been a help that now those remote working options are becoming available and companies are realising that they don't have to have somebody on site.
And I think some of it stems from understanding of military life. I think during the Afghanistan conflict, it was made more obvious to the British public the kind of lives that our serving partners live. But we were kind of shown to be a little bit sort of like, you know, the lonely wife that waits at home for a husband, which I think has done a little bit of damage. And there isn't the understanding that you can work flexibly and be transient. I think if we could change that conversation with employers, it would make such a difference, which I think is something we should all work towards, really. And in the same way, showing the world that business is also a great solution for this transient life, which is obviously what your Career Pursuit is all about. And I love it. I love the fact that it's so positive and so genuine. It shows, you know, the people that read it what to do, but also if any other people read it, the breadth of experience that is out there. What kind of feedback have you had?
We've had some really great feedback, and it's now sort of available tri-service, RAF, Navy, Army, been supported by all the families federations. Astra, the new RAF initiative, have been promoting it as well. And I know there's a new career transition programme that's coming out in the next few months online, which are going to be adopting it and using it as part of their online sort of career transition for people leaving the military as well, and which will support both the serving person and the families. So the feedback is brilliant and it's going far and wide. And the great thing is this is now going to be an annual guide. So it's going to be updated every year with new information, with current information, with the new resources available, so that hopefully, at any point, families can be directed to it and pick it up and have the current information at their fingertips.
Which is fab. I love that because it's so important. What was your favourite part of producing it?
What I loved was just being able to speak to so many amazing entrepreneurs that are military spouses and veterans. There are so many great businesses and companies out there that have been set up from this community, and everybody's very, very, very willing to share their tips. There's no keeping anything secret. There's no, I won't help you in case you take away from my business. It's a really open community, and everybody I reached out to get advice, to get articles, get support, everybody was really forthcoming, and I've just found that such a wonderful experience.
I think it stems from where we're so keen to make our lives a bit better. I think we've all been through some really tough times, which is what has inspired us to do these things. I've spoken about the reason that I started the Independent Spouse podcast, and then the Millspring Network, and I've interviewed a load of people on here that have had similar sort of journeys, for lack of a better word, and you're one of them, so it's great to talk to you. You have now started your business. You're based in Canada, which is very exciting. However, probably a bit fiddly. How have you done that?
Good question, because I wasn't really sure how I did it. But lots of research, and just was trying to find something that was going to use my skills. And how do you use clinical skills not in person? It was a difficult thing, but what I realized I had was the knowledge base and the ability to translate clinical research and information simply to get messages out to everybody. So I set up the business as a medical and health writer. And what I did from the beginning was I didn't focus on it being a local business or working in Canada. I focused on it being global, readily available to everybody. And actually that's worked out really well for me. Having that sort of transient client group across the world has made it really fly, which I'm really grateful for.
And do you have any tips for somebody who might be posted abroad, maybe to Canada or further afield, if they're thinking about starting a business, but that thought of them being posted abroad has stopped them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say you don't need to look on your doorsteps. We readily look just right where we are for support, for clients, for advice. But actually, I reached out to the UK, to Canada and the United States, and got support from all three countries in a wealth of information. And I think just reaching beyond your doorstep is such a great thing to do. And it's a global world. I know that sounds like a silly phrase, but it's a small world now, and you can have clients anywhere. You can work with clients anywhere, and you can make your business much bigger than just on your doorstep.
Definitely, you're right. Yeah, reaching out to other people, especially in this community, because we've all kind of, lived it, and we all want to see each other succeed, because when one of us succeeds, it means that the rest of us can follow, which I think is really important. So that's definitely a great bit of advice. Yes, to do that. So you have launched your business, like I said, in the middle of a global pandemic. Well done. It's going great guns. What is the plan for it going forward?
At the moment, I'm just sort of still trying to get to grips with running it with family life. I've got 3 children who are 1, 3 and 5. And obviously the lack of support being in a different country makes it a little bit tricky, but it is growing consistently. So the plan is just to continue that, really, to keep it growing, make it bigger. And I hope that, in the near future, that I may be able to employ some other military spouses as well, and make it a nice little organisation that supports the community and can be a great business, not just for me, but for some other people too.
Yes, definitely. You touched a little bit there on how, because you're so far away from your support network, it's difficult to start your own business and run your own business. How are you managing that?
You've got to put yourself out there. And I just said yes to everything when we moved here to meet people. And we don't live on a military base here. We don't have that military community. So you don't have that ready-made group of people to access. And I saw a poster on a wall for a babysitting co-op in my neighbourhood, and just rang them and went to that. And that's now a really great group of not just people that we share babysitting, but friends. And now our kids are friends. And that really helps, and making friends with the neighbours as well to help with babysitting and things. And I really just put myself out there and said yes to everything. And I think that's really important. It can be really easy to shy away, especially when you don't have a support network and you don't have that ready-made military community. And it's been really beneficial just to take the plunge.
That's another really good point. I think when every time you move and you get a little bit sort of intimidated and a little bit frightened and not committing and going to those things when you can go to them, or even just online stuff, it can be really intimidating. But if you don't go, you kind of miss all these connections and all these chances. And at the end of the day, we've all been that new girl. I have 100 times. So we all kind of understand. And it just takes a little while to find your people. So I think it's really important to just be brave a little bit and go and do the things, especially if you're posted abroad.
Yeah.
So I love your guide. I've shared it all over the place. It's went out in the newsletter. Everybody's seen it. If I'm interested in reading it, where can I find it?
So it's readily available on my website, which is www.medicalandhealthwriter.com. If you go on there, there's a link in the tab that says Career Pursuit, and you can just click on it and read it digitally. So it's entirely readily available on there. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to put an email address in. You can just read it, download it for free on your phone, on your computer, anywhere that you are.
And tell your friends all about it as well.
Yes, absolutely. Tell your friends all about it. And something I like to say is that it's not just for military spouses. The first half of the guide, which is a lot of articles, covers just useful hints and tips for anybody who is looking for a new job, looking to start a business. There's advice on interviews, there's advice on how to use LinkedIn, there's advice on how to write a CV, how to start your own business and the financial side of that. So that's really relevant to everybody. Even if you know somebody who's looking for a new job or to start a business and they're not sure where to start, point them in the direction of the guide, because it's got some great tips just to get started with your career change.
Yes, we should all do that. Helen, it's been lovely to talk to you. I'm so excited that this is going to be an annual thing and it's going to be updated. I will, of course, share that again and get involved and support it in any way I can. And I think anybody who is thinking that they need to get stuck in or to help should definitely get in contact with you. Just before we finish, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to say that I think everybody should just utilize this wonderful military community that we have. Like, I didn't really know until I started to research starting my own business how big the community is and how great it is. And just sharing all these resources, sharing all the websites, sharing everybody's different companies. We've got this really great community, and I would just urge everybody to get involved, you know, even if it's just getting on the Facebook pages or speaking to your friends about it. It makes life easier for all of us. And I think we're all suffering the same difficulties, moving around a lot, and, you know, the same difficulties with military life, and it just takes the pressure off.
It does, and you can get to meet some amazing people. So Helen, it has been fab. Thank you so much for writing the guide and sorting it out for us. It's been such a great asset to everybody, and also for coming to talk to me today.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thanks again to the lovely Helen. And I would really recommend going out and looking at that guide. Even if you've already started your own business or you've got a job, it's still full of loads of information that is really useful. So do go check it out, and of course share it with all of your friends who might be interested. So that's it for me today. I will of course be back next week with the last of the episodes of this series for you to enjoy. So do make sure you subscribe so you can hear it first, and I shall see you next week.